This is Let's Talk Football on the sportshacks.com, and this is World Cup Let's Talk Football. We are now into what the coaches and managers across football call the business end of the season, so to speak, if you can classify the World Cup as a season. Already, some teams are out of contention for the second phase of the tournament, and already some teams are starting to look at who they might draw in the second phase of the tournament. England are not at that stage just yet, but they did have a very good win 4-2 against Croatia in their opening game the other night. I'm looking forward to England's game this week against Ghana. I'm delighted to be joined, as always, on Let's Talk Football by our good friend Rob Shepherd in the United Kingdom. Rob, a grey shirt. I wore a grey shirt today purely by coincidence. I didn't realise you were going to wear your grey England shirt. Just turn around and give us a look at the name and the number on the back.
Can you get that there? Can you see that?
So number 4 would be Mr. Shepherd. Tell us the story of this shirt, because to me, it looks like a Euro 96 shirt.
It is a Euro 96 shirt, and it was given to me after Euro 96 by Terry Venables, who was the England manager at the time. I was pretty close to Terry. In the build-up, actually, 5 months before, I revealed that he would be leaving England after the tournament, whether England had won it or not. In the Daily Mail, it was. At the time.
You were a backseat driver for that story, if I may prompt a photograph.
Well, the day after, it was such a bombshell story in the January of '96 that he would quit as England manager, even if England went on to win the tournament. It was a contract dispute, and. After I had done it, I went to see him the next day because there was a kind of a follow-up situation, and then we left his premises, which was an upmarket wine bar in Kensington, Scribes West,
with a great name, Scribes.
Indeed, and as we left that afternoon, I was suddenly part of the story in the sense that the paparazzi were taking pictures of us leaving in a car. And there you go.
There's the photograph.
Picture that ended up the next day on the paper. So I found out what it was like to be chased by my own colleagues and others. So that was quite an interesting situation.
I've been there in a different life, Rob, and it's a very interesting scenario to be in. And speaking of Terry Venables, I personally would have been very happy if Terry Venables had become Ireland manager, but that's a story for another day, and we will no doubt return to that at some point in the future. But as I said, that's water under the Liffey Bridge, so to speak. 1996, I remember, what a tournament for Paul Gascoigne. The goal celebration when he scored, it was Scotland at Wembley. Teddy Sheringham, I think, led the celebrations. Gazza collapsed onto the field, lay down there with his mouth open and his hands up in the air, and they sprayed water into his mouth. Remind us about the story. We have a dentist now in charge of the Irish team, but in '96 it was all about a dentist's chair, wasn't it?
It was, because ahead of the tournament, England had gone and played against China or Hong Kong team. And they were given a day off or night off before they came back to England for the last preparations, and they all went out to a bar, or quite many of them. And part of the thing in that bar was that people would be sat in a dentist chair and have flaming Lamborghinis and other sorts of stuff. And someone spoke about the paparazzi. I think it was someone in the bar of the bar that had a sort of a public relations opportunity. They took a picture. It made its way back to England, and it caused a massive stir and a furore. This is not the way to prepare for a tournament. Gascoigne was castigated by a lot of the press and other.
There was calls to drop him from the squad, wasn't there? If I remember rightly.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was quite a big thing, because it was still at a time of a backlash of his preparation. His lifestyle had been very complex at that time, and it has been for much of his football career and subsequently. And in fact, I'd actually done a sort of a mini series with him before they went to the Far East, after he played in a cup final for Rangers. And it was all ready to go in the paper, and it was such a backlash that the editor of the paper at the time, not the sports editor, the editor, decided to pull everything from Gascoigne. This particular paper the Daily Mail it was at the time. They sort of wanted to make him persona non grata. But of course, Gascoigne rose to the occasion in that Scotland match, scoring one of the all-time great goals that you will ever see from have seen from an England player, particularly at a tournament. And yes, the celebration, it was to mock the coverage and perhaps gave us the first indication of hydration breaks.
The Paul Gascoigne hydration break is brought to you by Paul Gascoigne. It wasn't brought to you by anybody else. And Teddy Sheringham.
Yeah, that would be an interesting conversation as well. But maybe we should move on.
We should move on. You mentioned this previously, 1996 and 2026. We're in that equinox where 96 was 30 years of hurt, 66, and then 2026 is 60 years of hurt. Did you see enough from England against Croatia to see that the hurt may be starting to end?
Well, it was very frustrating in the first half, and suddenly the assistant coach, or one of the assistant coaches, came on the TV, Anthony Barry. Quite frankly, no one really heard of him.
He's a former assistant manager with Ireland, and a man who we will credit with turning Stephen Kenny's team around.
I always recognise that Ireland will take some credit somewhere along the way.
Absolutely.
And quite rightly.
And wait till starting Harry Kane, by the way, but that's a little bit down the road here.
Well, you can, and I could ruffle the feathers about Declan Rice, if you recall, but maybe we won't get into that. But he came on, and I was fully expecting a very bland interview, and it was a drop mic interview it was 59 seconds, and it went straight back to the studio. Gary Neville said, "Blimey, Stoundpacker is the German for a bollocking." I think we can say that, or a rollicking. And clearly the halftime team talk by Tuchel turned England's fortunes around. They went on the front foot. It was interesting that when Gareth Southgate reflected on the 2002 World Cup, when England went in 1-1 against Brazil, gone down to 10 men, and England needed to get on the front foot, progress from the quarterfinals. The first wave of the gold generation, the gateway was there to go all the way, and they didn't. And Southgate quipped when England needed Winston Churchill, they got Ian Duncan Smith. Now, we're not always going to talk about necessarily Churchill's career as a statesman. However, he did have a way with words, and it seems, the sort of comparisons with a German coach may get a bit tricky. But there were times when you thought that Southgate was drifting towards Baldrick from Blackadder. You know, he had another cunning plan, and it was all waffle. Tuchel made an impact with regard to that, and the second half was really refreshing to see England.
They were laid out for the second half.
They were. I mean, they've kind of played it down a little bit since. I think Kane after the game said it was a speech, and some of the spin of which you'll be aware of, Carl, is he didn't really lose December. I'm told it wasn't quite Mike Bassett, England manager, teacups at 5 paces. But it was, I think the German word for a hairdryer is Herdruche. And I think he got the old hairdryer out. And England really responded well. Bellingham scored a wonderful solo goal. And there was suddenly a fluidity that we haven't really seen at England in tournaments. Really, the second half reminded me a little bit of how England demolished Holland in Euro 96 when they beat Holland 4-1. They were 1-0 up at half-time and then went on to crush Holland. And there were signs of that. But this is only the opening game. And Croatia are not the Croatia they were.
We said that.
And Luka Modric's legs had gone.
Yeah, we said that before the game, didn't we? I said to you, my Croatian friend doesn't believe in this team. And even though they play nice football and they can pass the ball around, the ultimate threat wasn't really there. Harry Kane, 2 goals, the first a penalty that was allowed to be retaken, and that's a debate for somebody else to worry about. Harry Kane's family are from Galway, so that's why I'm saying we're claiming him. He never played for us, but we gave you Declan Rice back and we gave you Jack Grealish back. But Jack Grealish, of course, not at this tournament. But Harry Kane, where does he rank in the pantheon of English strikers? I mean, I saw somebody saying he's somewhere between Jimmy Greaves and Alan Shearer.
Well, they're the three I'm going to bring into the equation, but I'd put Harry Kane on top of that list. He's now scored 81 goals in 115 England games. Shearer was 30 goals in 68 matches. As a pure goal scorer, Jimmy Greaves, 44 goals in 57 games for England in a different era. I still would put Greaves as a greater player, but overall, in regards to his longevity, his impact on England in qualifying and at tournaments, I think Kane is actually above both of those. 24 of his goals have been from penalties, which is out of 28 attempts, although I'm not sure whether that counts as an attempt or not, that retaken one. He was a bit fortunate there. Didn't like him doing the stutter. This stutter stuff is, I don't know why.
It's great when it works.
It looks great when it works. You do get the impression that some of the players are doing it for the goal celebration afterwards, particularly Eze in the Champions League final, because there's evidence of him scoring penalties for various clubs. Palace, big game. He missed them. He got caught out. So don't like seeing that. But I put Kane at the top of the list, and there he is there underneath my wall chart, scoring a goal, and we're looking forward to that again against Ghana.
In terms of Bellingham, then we spoke before the match about him playing in the 10 role. We spoke about him being back in favour with Tuchel. How significant was his second half, do you think, in cementing his place in this team?
Yeah, I think it was significant because there were a couple of occasions in the first half where he seemed to lack the confidence, despite seemingly his self-belief, or perhaps sometimes some would call it arrogance. But whether Tuchel's words got to him, or indeed whether he had some specific instructions, his second half display was one that suggested that he is the number 10 ahead of Morgan Rogers. I would say on the goal, Noni, who got Madueke ahead of Saka, surprisingly in the starting lineup, and he was quite positive in the first half in a stuttering first half. He made a tremendous run, but it was what they call a sacrificial run. And what that indicated to me is that players around Bellingham are willing to make those sacrificial runs to create space, to give him the space to operate. It does seem there's a recognition that he is the sort of main playmaker, and other players are willing to work around him. And as a consequence of that, he delivered. And the more someone delivers, the more the rest of them are willing to make that.
They're going to buy in.
Yeah.
My one fear for you looking at your performance, even in the second half, is I don't trust your goalkeeper. I'm sorry to say that to you, but I don't.
It's interesting you say. Yeah, really interesting you say that, because in his first wave as England, he's been England number one for the best part of 4 or 5 years now, and it's not a debate actually. When he first came into the team, I did think it was a mistake waiting to happen. I actually don't agree with you on that. I think he's matured. He seems to be less agitated when he's in goal. There has been evidence in the qualifying when he has been called on to make a good save, he does so. And in the first half, he was often being the spare man. He was almost like playing as a sweeper keeper, and offering an outlet when England couldn't find any space to break forward because, partly they were passing the ball too slowly, as again was highlighted by Barry in his halftime interview, reflecting what Tuchel had been saying to play. So, but where I do think England are still suspect out the back.
Yeah.
The two set. I mean, Stones did not play well at all. Him and Conte did not look like a partnership. And Reece James was ordinary at right back. Riley at left back was more adventurous, but they weren't really tested by pace down the flanks. And
he was better for City all season than he was for England the other night.
I agree with you. But that's, he seems to me be one of these fullbacks, and there's more and more of them now that look really good when they're going forward, like Jed Spence. There's a lot of people in England at the moment are going, oh, Jed Spence, he came on for James, who wasn't so good, and he did really well. England were on top in the second half, and he was venturing forward and he looked good. These fullbacks not been tested. Well, they weren't tested against Croatia by pace, by opposing wingers or flank men going at them. And I suspect there will be more of an examination from Ghana. I think that they will have more attacking options down in the wide areas. And I am concerned all round about England's defence and their ability to defend. Because let's not forget, it was 2-2 at half-time, and even at 3-2, when England had got on top, Pickford pulled out a good save, by the way, to stop it going to 3-3. So there's vulnerability at the back, and I suspect Ghana will give more of an examination than Croatia did.
They'll certainly have pace, there's no way about that. Just before we look at Ghana, can I ask you one question, which is always intriguing for us, and Lee Carsley, as you know, played for Ireland, became England manager on an interim basis after Southgate left, and got caught up in a story about God Save the Queen, I think it was at the time, now God Save the King. Tuchel had an issue, and I agree with him, he had an issue with the photographers in his face during the anthem and said it spoiled the moment for him. But have I seen dissent or discourse about his use of the anthem or not being part of the anthem? Is that just a thing in England?
Well, it is a little bit, and it's ridiculous. I don't like it. I mean, various people have different reasons to respect an anthem or not. I mean, if you actually look before the if people want to start, looking at the past and suggesting that everybody was singing it back in the day, well, they weren't. I mean, if you look before 1966 World Cup, no one sang it. In fact, many people observation of the national anthem for many years was one of not singing it, just respecting it or whatever. And in Euro 96, some players chose to, some not. For some reason, increasing in the last 20 years, it's become an issue. And indeed, when Tuchel took, well, it was with Ericsson, and he sang it. Now, listen, I don't really think that if you're going to have a foreign coach, and that's another debate, because I have to say, as someone that's like, if you like, an internationalist on wider things, I still think international football, your manager should come from the country of which he's representing, because that's the point of difference in international football. That's a deep and complex debate. There were some people questioning it. I don't think he needs to sing it. And I just don't think it's a story, and I think it should just be kicked into the long grass. I don't think it makes him a better or worse coach whether he sings it.
Interesting. Graham Potter has learned the Swedish national anthem in Swedish. Jack Charlton never sang the Irish national anthem, but he did sing Dublin in the Rare Old Times once or twice, and he sang the Bladen Races, which is the Geordie national anthem, so to speak. So we were never too bothered about Jack Charlton singing the anthem. Jack delivered on the pitch, and that was fine with us. Just then to look ahead to Ghana. Firstly, Thomas Partey denied entry into Canada because of the upcoming case in London, allowed into the America. He's going to come up against some of his old Arsenal teammates. Debate I see this morning across some of the media. Will they shake hands with him? Will they try and stay away from him? Carlos Queiroz, who's now the manager of Ghana, I think this is about his 28th World Cup as a manager, saying that, the river must run and we'll see where the river takes us and then we'll decide how we treat this. It's a difficult story, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a difficult story. It's coming up for a court case, so we can't really prejudge it. And if he's free to play, he's free to play. And I think someone refusing to shake his hand will be prejudging a situation before a court case. So I just think it's business as usual. It's a bit odd that he can't get into Canada, but he can get into the USA. I don't really get that. But if he's free to play, absolutely. And I don't think that he should be should suffer any prejudicial treatment by anybody.
Ghana 1-0 winners against Panama. What do you expect from them? Plenty of pace.
Yeah, pace, energy, good shape, discipline. I think I expect a test. I think England could be in for a bigger test than a lot of people imagine. Saw the Ivory Coast the other night. Very impressive. And then from the North African nations, we've looked Morocco, how good they are. Egypt. I think this is a tough game for England. I do.
In terms of the atmosphere back home, has it improved? Is there a bit more interest in the tournament? Is it growing?
Yeah, there is. You're now seeing a few cars with flags on, and look, and there was beer parks around the country were reasonably well populated. It's not reached a crescendo, but it's interesting. Scotland fans, you mentioned, yes, sir, we can boogie. I wrote a piece last week about, part of the vibe's not there because there's a bit of a confusion about national identity. After Euro 96, a few weeks later, Oasis did a massive concert at Nebworth, and about 10 years after that, there was a documentary called Supersonic, and Noel Gallagher reasoned that was the last gathering of the people before the internet. How people have altered the way that maybe they perceive that national identity or follow the national team or their own teams in different ways. But the fact that England fans now seem to have adopted Wonderwall as their sort of unofficial anthem, as Scotland have done, yes, sir, I can boogie. It suggests that there is a little bit of the spirit of Euro 96 beginning.
Coming back in. The Gallagher's, by the way, are Irish, but anyway, we won't talk about that either.
That's the third link today. The third. It's okay.
I'm scraping the barrels. We don't have a World Cup. Our Pico locals. We don't have a World Cup.
Since you brought Barrel up, I can heartily recommend Guinness Zero.
I am
watch games with.
Yeah, I'm a connoisseur of Guinness Zero at the moment, Mr. Shepherd. You'd be glad to know. So, Wonderwall it is.
Me too.
England to win.
For me, I think it'll be a draw.
I'm thinking Kane is going to win this one, and Pickford probably won't get to throw it away just yet. But we'll discuss Mr. Pickford again in the future. Elsewhere, Scotland fans, they've left Boston. England are going to move in. How many bagpipes can you get into America?
That's a good question. One I haven't really considered. That. I suppose I've got no answer to that. I've got absolutely no answer.
I don't think there's many more can be left in Scotland, because judging by every time I turn on social media, I'm seeing somebody playing a bagpipe somewhere across New England as it was up to now. But when you see football,
well, let's hope England aren't playing violins.
No, I could guess. But when you're singing Old Lang Syne as a football song to the bagpipes, I think it's time to find a new instrument. But anyway, we'll talk about that again in the future. Have you seen a World Cup winner? I asked you this the last day. Still early days.
Well, I still think the best overall team I've seen is France, but that's only on the evidence of their opening game. I mean, Holland was superly impressive in the way that they demolished Sweden, who got off to a seemingly good start in their opening game. And yeah, they had a lot of options. Holland. I mean, let's not forget Holland for all the the great players they've had and wonderful tournaments. They've never won the World Cup, so suddenly could this be the year? And they've got them. We're talking about the Tartan Army. What a wonderful set of fans they are. England fans are getting into the right spirit at the moment, so that's all good. With Wonderwall, can England break down, the Wonderwall and win the World Cup? But more to the point, can Holland? Great teams before have got to finals in 74, 78. Didn't go over the line. They've stuck with Koeman, who came under a lot of criticism. There were people that wanted him out. Weren't hugely impressive in their first game, drawing 2-2 to Japan. But to demolish Sweden, Holland looking good. And, of course, we got to the semi-finals last time and we saw that incredible game that they had against Argentina, if you recall. So maybe it's Holland's year.
And
they've got they've got a huge following, from people, not just from the Netherlands, but indigenous people from the States.
And the other two we should mention, of course, Brazil and Argentina are just pottering away in the background, doing what they have to do, and they have players who will score goals. Messi still doing it for Argentina, so they're not going away. No,
absolutely. But it goes without saying we're quite early at the moment into the tournament. It's difficult to make any definitive appraisals, but from what I've seen so far. Of European teams, if we're not pushing England too hard and too fast, which I think I expect England to get to quarterfinals, and then we'll see. France and Holland look good to me.
Yeah, and we've just yet to see Portugal for a second time, but they weren't particularly impressive the first time. So
no,
I think unless they drop Ronaldo, they're going to have an indifferent tournament. Rob Shepherd, as always, it has been a pleasure. I'm sure you'll have 3 lines on your shirt when England play against the wonderful Ghana. That threatens to be a wonderful experience of English culture against African excitement. We look forward to that. We look forward to catching up with you. And your giraffes, by the way, I see them there in the background, and your World Cup wall chart, all going very well. We look forward to catching up later in the week.
See you later in the week.